Welcome to the Honest Reflection Podcast with your hosts, Cody Hairston and Nick Woods. Here, we want to help you reflect on your week and be honest about your relationship with God. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hey guys, glad to have you listening into another episode with us. If you like what you hear today, please rate, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Nick, how's it going over there this week?
Man, it's going good. We got family in town, so it's going to be a busy week, but that's always fun, and it's always enjoyable to spend time with our family and friends when they come to visit us out here. So looking forward to that. It's nice weather. It's the past couple of days been enjoying that because we're going to get some rain the next few days. So enjoying the sunshine today. How's it going for you?
Pretty good. Our weather's been topsy-turvy. It was kind of cold over the weekend and yesterday, but today it says we're hitting a new record for heat. So not sure what that's about. I also mentioned to you that I left the heater on in my office because it was cold yesterday. So I got in today and it was baking, but we're past that. It's all good. And now we're ready to talk about prayer. And so our focus for today is going to be consistency. As we're praying, we want to make sure that we are praying with consistency. The thing is when you value something, you do it consistently. People know that I like football. I value football. I like watching sports. How do they know that? It's because I watch football games. I talk about football. Like they can tell this is a part of my normal life. I watch it with consistency. And so prayer is going to work the same way. If we value prayer, if we care about prayer, there's going to be some consistency with that comes with that. That's why in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, Paul can say, pray without ceasing. Right? His goal there isn't to say 24/7. As soon as you wake up, you're praying all day. But the idea is you are always in prayer. That is a normal part of your rhythm. And there are plenty of Bible people that have consistent prayer lives, and I think we're going to talk about a couple of them today. For me, the person that always comes to my mind when I think of consistency in prayer is Daniel. From Daniel chapter 6, Daniel has what I've called haters. He's got some haters there in Daniel 6. Daniel has favor with the Persian government. King Darius, he likes Daniel a lot. He's been treating him well. Well, the other people who are kind of in Daniel's line of work, they don't like that. They kind of feel like maybe Daniel's a teacher's pet or something like that. And so what they do is they convince the king to pass this law that anyone who prays to their God for 30 days will be thrown into the lion's den, i.e. put to death, because people don't just get thrown into lions' dens and survive. And so they convince him to make this law. And after Daniel hears about the injunction there, you would think he'd be like, oh man, well let me back off on this prayer thing, or let me make some adjustments. But no, after Daniel hears about the law, he just goes back to business as usual. He's got a prayer life of 3 times a day. He's got the windows open up towards Jerusalem. He hears about the law, and he's like, okay, well, back to business. And so there's incredible consistency there. And 2 things that stand out about his consistency are one, he wouldn't even let the threat of death stop him. I mean, that's the ultimate self-control. That's the ultimate dedication. And for me, it really puts me to shame, because I think of times where I've broken up my rhythm of prayer. Sometimes it's, I had a headache that day, or even worse, it just didn't feel like it, or there was some other inconvenience that came up that prevented me from praying. It's like, man, there's nothing more inconvenient than death. And that's what's on the table for Daniel. But he still prays. He's still consistent with it. I also noticed that Daniel could have just waited 30 days. Like, that's not that long. That's a month. He could have said, oh, well, let me ride this thing out. I won't pray for these 30 days. Hey, and once the injunction is over, then I'll get back to it. But no, Daniel's consistent. He says, I have to pray. He values his time talking with the Lord that much that he can't miss him one day, much less 30. And it probably says something about Daniel's consistency that the people knew that they would get him with this. They knew, hey, the one way that we will for sure get Daniel is his prayer life, because we know he's always going to be doing that. But the reason why Daniel was able to be so consistent is it's because he valued it. He knew that time spent in prayer to the Lord, time developing that relationship with God, it was of the utmost importance. And so even if that meant death as a consequence, So that's something he was willing to endure. And so, Nick, when you think of consistency, does Daniel stand out to you too?
Oh, definitely. Probably one of the first people, like many, that comes to mind, like you were saying, like, because it's so specific and it creates this reminder, at least to Daniel, prayer was life or death. Like his communication with God was the most important thing to him, and he was willing to die for it. And man, that's powerful, because I think the other thing about that story that stands out to me is that it's just 30 days. Like, how many of us are like, I think about my lack of a workout routine. It's like, man, 30 days, I can go 30 days without working out. That's no big deal, right? Like but then like you go back to the gym after 30 days, and it's like, oh man, it kind of was a big deal. And that's like, a minor thing. But how many times do we treat prayer like it's a minor thing, right? But for Daniel, it wasn't. Like, this was the most important and valuable times of his day, multiple times a day. And he wasn't willing to not do it for just one day. I also think about Daniel when I think about him praying alone, right? Like, he was making time to be alone in prayer. And I think that matters, right? Like, maybe as we're talking through this, you feel like you're somebody who doesn't do a good job being consistent in prayer. And maybe it's because you don't ever have just time in your own space to think. Or maybe it's because when you're alone, you do other things besides stop and pray and think. And I think about that a lot with Daniel. Like, he was intentional with his time alone too. So those stands out to me. I love the story of Daniel. I love the power, the courage it gave him, right? Like the courage that it gave him to not be afraid to go to the lion's den, and of course the Lord protected him on that occasion. But what a powerful example, right? I also think about Nehemiah. I love Nehemiah 1-8 is just like full of prayers, and it's prayers for help, prayers for courage, prayers for victory, prayers for praise, and just about like any type of prayer you can find there, like prayer like in the moment. Like there's in chapter 1, chapter 2, he just like turns and prays when he gets a chance to talk to the king. So there's some like really cool stuff in that story too. I always think about prayer, but of course, like I don't think we can talk about consistency or prayer in general without talking about Jesus, because there's so many times. I'm going to use one example, but there's so many others. We talked about one last week, and there are different times, but like just the way that the gospel writers just kind of like casually mention, oh, and Jesus was praying, like this in Matthew chapter 14, after he had fed the 5,000. About 5,000 men who were eating, not counting the women and children. So like a massive crowd of people that had been there with him, and he had fed them miraculously. It says immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go ahead of him to the other side of the Sea of Galilee. And while he sent the crowds away, and after he had sent the crowds away, in verse 23, he went up on a mountain by himself to pray. And when it was evening, he was there alone. And I love this example because it's kind of like in passing. It's like to get from one miracle to the next if we're not reading carefully enough, right? We go from Jesus feeding the large crowd, 5,000 plus, to Jesus walking on water, right? And so it's just like, here are these two like massive miraculous stories. Like sandwiched in the middle is probably the most important thing that happens, is like after an exhausting day, when crowds have been thronging against him and asking him questions, he had to deal with his disciples like kind of doubting, like, look, all these people are here. How are we going to feed them? What are we supposed to do? So he's got to mentally deal with all of this. And so he's tired because he's in the flesh, right? Like we often don't, I feel like maybe don't attribute a lot of things to Jesus being in the flesh. Like, yes, he was the Son of God, but he was living in the flesh, dealing with the struggles and the temptations and the things that we deal with. And so like he was tired. And so he sent the crowds away. And I take this like he removed the distractions from all the things going on in the world around him, all the things that were pressing against him. He removed those distractions. He sent them away. He sent his disciples away. And you're like, well, those are sometimes it's like, what? These are my family. These are my friends. These are the people I'm closest to. They're not a distraction. Sometimes they can be. And the disciples, they were going away. They were going across the sea because he needed to be alone. And then like kind of to further make the point, Matthew points out, he's like, then he went up on the mountain by himself. It's like he removed the people, and then he went up to a secluded place by himself. And then Matthew says, and he was there alone. It's like, yeah, we get it, right? Like he needed to be by himself. But I think that's intentional, right? Like all those statements are, Like if Jesus needed to be alone in order to talk to God, we need to be alone to talk to God. Like we need that time, we need that space, we need that undistracted mind. And so I think it really stands that out to me. He like removes himself from any possible distractions so that he can spend time in prayer. It was important to him so that he would be consistent in doing the thing that was important to him. He removed the distractions so that he could be alone to do that thing. So he provides a great example, I think, just in general, right, in his life in so many areas. But praying's no different, right? Like a great example of Jesus. If we want to see how to pray, look to Jesus.
Yeah, like you just said at the end there, Jesus he's the perfect example. So it shouldn't be surprising that we would go to Jesus for the example of prayer. But like you also said, I mean, we see Jesus praying several different times, and I feel like each different instance gives us a little more clarity, a different shade of his consistency. Because the time in Mark 1 always comes to my mind, because there it says specifically he woke up early in the morning to pray. I mean, that's consistency. If this is daylight savings week, think about waking up an hour early, right? Jesus, but that's the type of thing that Jesus did. He woke up early. He wanted to make sure that he set aside time to pray. Matthew 14, the passage you've been referencing, well, that's Jesus praying at the end of the day. So he's just making time for it. Whether he's got to wake up early, he's got to stay up late, he's got to remove himself from certain situations. He knows, hey, I'm going to be consistent about this. I'm going to be consistent in talking to the Father. So he's willing to do whatever it takes in order to get there. We wanted to have a section here about like kind of a tips and tricks section, because we don't want to leave everyone just feeling overwhelmed by the idea of consistent prayer. I'll speak for me personally. It seems daunting to think about praying as consistently as Daniel, or especially when you think about Jesus and praying like Jesus. And it can be so daunting that I think about praying 3 times a day, and I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And then tomorrow I end up maybe I only get 2 prayers, or I only get 1, or, maybe I don't get any. Now I've set myself back even further, and it just kind of becomes this really negative cycle of like, oh, I set the goal too high, I'll never be able to achieve that. We also don't want the process to become the focus. So we don't want it to seem like, oh, if you don't have this exact process, then you're just not doing it right. We want prayer. We want talking to God. That's what needs to be the focus. And so in order to achieve that, in order to get to that consistency of prayer, I would say the number one tip is to start small. If you are not in a consistent rhythm of prayer, praying 3 times a day starting tomorrow is probably not in the cards for you. We may have some superheroes among us that have that sort of discipline and self-control that you could just pick something up like that tomorrow. I doubt that. Okay, and I don't mean that in any sort of a negative way. That's just not usually how it works. You already mentioned the working out, right? If you haven't been working out and then you decide tomorrow I'm working out for 2 hours a day, well, it's probably not going to go very well for you, right? You gotta work up to these things. And so instead of saying, okay, tomorrow I'm praying 3 times a day, maybe pick one time where you'll have a few moments and say, I'm going to pray in these moments. It can be when you wake up, it can be bedtime, it can be shower, it can be driving, just some time in your day where you'll just have a couple of moments alone. Pick that time and say, hey, I'm going to start here. I would also recommend making the prayers short and sweet in the beginning. Jesus, when he's teaching the disciples to pray, he prays a prayer that only takes maybe 10 seconds to say. It didn't take long to say what Jesus says there, but it's still a prayer. It's still talking to God. It's still impactful. And so maybe start with something small, just a couple of things that are in your life right now, a couple of things that you want to say to the Lord, and just say those things. And after time, you can build on that if you want to. The Lord doesn't need lengthy prayers in order to act on our behalf. So you don't need to make the prayer long just for length's sake. But if you want to work from there, we'll start small and kind of build onto that. Again, it's not about the length of the prayer. It's just about recognizing and making time for your relationship with God. You want this relationship. You want to be communicating to him and talking with him. Well, just set aside a couple of moments where you'll be able to to make a little bit of time for them. So, Nick, what types of tips would you give to someone who's trying to see more consistency in their prayer life?
Yeah, I love that. Starting small with anything is really important when we're trying to establish something that we don't want it to be a habit for habit's sake, but we do want it to be a good kind of habit and something that we regularly, like Daniel. Like I would say Daniel had a habit of praying, right? Like he was known as being somebody who prayed. And so like that, I love that. And I love the idea too, just kind of like the way you hit on it. It's not about the length of the prayer, right? Like it's just about talking to God. And I think the more that we can train our minds to understand that one, God loves us, he hears us, and he wants us to talk with him, then that's when the prayers start growing, not because we're making them grow, but because we're just pouring our heart out. But it doesn't, like, don't overwhelm yourself by thinking like, oh, it's just not coming naturally. Just pray. Like if you do something, just do it. Like, and the thing I've found as far as like tips go is that if I don't make things a priority, if I don't if I don't plan it, it doesn't happen. If I don't put it in the calendar, I'm probably gonna forget about it. And that's okay. Like if I'm praying, I'm gonna set a reminder on my phone. Like I want to pray at this time today, or I want to pray about this today. And before the day ends, I want to pray about this list of things. So it's okay. Make a list. Use the technology that we have to make a list, make reminders, put it in your calendar, um, put a note on your bathroom window, on your refrigerator door. Like sticky notes are really useful for a lot of different things. Like put it on your steering wheel so that before you like crank up the car, you think to pray. Right? Like I'm gonna call out my brother for just a minute because this is several years ago. It's like before he even got married, and I went over to his house where he was at the time, and I walked in, and this dude had put post-it notes everywhere. I don't know if he wants me telling the story or not, but he's getting it told. And it was all good stuff. It was like reminders. Some of it was just like reminder stuff. Some of it was like verses that he wanted to remember. But it was like on the bathroom window. It was on the refrigerator door. It was on the door going out the house. And I love that. I was that taught me something. I was like, man, if you really think stuff's important and you're going to make plans for it, you're going to figure out a way that works for you to make it a part of your life. And so I love that. And then the second thing that I was thinking about as far as like tips is like be intentional about removing distractions, right? Like be intentional about like doing it, like start small, just do it. Um, and then like you be consistent, like make it a part of your day, plan it, but then like, you know, also remove distractions. We have so many things pulling at our attention. And I jotted down a couple of things, right? Like this list grows depending on where you're at in life, but like turn off the TV, like find a quiet place. Jesus goes up on a mountain to be alone. Like take your phone and put it on the charger and take your smartwatch off and put it on the charger and like leave all that stuff, go into a different room and find a quiet place. Maybe it's like the technology is not the distractions, it's the children and family members, right? Like go find a time to pray after the kids are asleep, or before the kids wake up, right? Like um, just if it's important, if you value talking to God, then, and I think we all do. I think that's the point of having these discussions, to encourage each other to do things that we already see that are important. And so then like it becomes about like how am I gonna make time to do something that I know is important to me? I know that God wants me to do, but I also know that he wants to hear from me, and I think that's a really valuable part of all of this. So whenever you decide, however you decide to be consistent, just be intentional. Be intentional, and that's going to help create the consistency. The more we value prayer, the more we're actively seeking to be, I think, intentional about creating time to do it.
Now, we always want to take a moment to do some reflection. And this is a good one for me because I know that my prayer life, my consistency in prayer, it needs to be better. So I'm doing this with everybody else. First of all, same question as last week. Do you value prayer? And can you see that value in your consistency in your prayer? If you are already consistent, say you're in a good rhythm, I would say keep at it and let me know what your process is. I am not ashamed to copy something that's working. And so if you've got a good process for establishing and talking to the Father, man, continue doing that. But if not, how can you be more consistent in your prayer life?
Thank you for listening to the Honest Reflection Podcast. If you liked this episode, give it a like, a share, or even a comment to let us know how we're doing. We hope we've helped you think, reflect, and be honest about your relationship with God, and we can't wait to see you again next week.